Hello, everyone. Now, I want to know what do you think about this? There's a teacher that was suspended for not using students' preferred pronouns, sues school. Now, a Kansas veteran teacher, Pamela Ricard, who was officially suspended under the district's bullying and diversity and inclusion policies, was also denied the religious exemption she requested related to the district's newly required practice to use students' preferred names. Now, the lawsuit says Ricard is a devout Christian who believes gender is assigned by God at conception. The suit also says that any policy that requires her to refer to a student by a gender, non-binary, or plural pronoun or other gendered language that is different from the student's biological sex actively violates her religious beliefs. The complaint comes at a time when transgender rights in schools are being addressed more often as school districts across the nation adopt diversity, equity, and inclusion training, which often includes greater sensitivity towards LGBTQ rights. Our suit contends that schools cannot force teachers to promote novel views about gender fluidity and ever expanding pronoun categories without regard to the First Amendment or due process, said Josh Ney, the attorney for Ricard. Throughout her career, Ms. Ricard has consistently treated every student in her classroom with respect and dignity. Unfortunately, the school district has not treated Ms. Ricard with similar good faith or basic fairness. According to the suit, neither the USD 475 Geary County School District nor Fort Riley Middle School had a formal policy regarding student preferred name and pronoun use at the time of Ricard's April 2021 suspension. Instead, she was suspended under generic district policies related to bullying by staff, diversity and inclusion, and staff-student relations prohibiting harassment and bullying of students by staff. The school district disciplined Ms. Ricard not for something she said, but for something she couldn't say, said Josh Ney of Kriegshauser Ney Law Group, who is representing Ricard in a statement. The Geary County School District has engaged in unconstitutional targeting of my client over the past year while inconsistently attempting to enforce successive drafts of its new pronoun policies and equity training initiatives. According to the complaint filed Monday, it was in the spring of 2021 when middle school administrators began issuing diversity and equity training and emails to middle school teachers directing them to use students' preferred names instead of the names listed in the district's enrollment records or legal name. It was when Ricard addressed the biological female student by the student's legal and enrolled last name in an effort to avoid using the student's preferred first name. She was reprimanded and suspended for 3 days. Ricard's attorney said his client felt that addressing the student as Miss and her legal enrolled last name would respect the student while also not violating Ricard's own religious convictions. The Fort Riley Middle School math teacher who has taught there since 2005 also proposed a neutral policy to the district school board, according to the suit, which would allow her and other teachers to address students by the names listed in the district official enrollment records. That was rejected after the school board met in private with the school district's attorney, Mark Edwards, and it was instead mandated that all teachers address students by their preferred names and pronouns. According to the suit, students' parents were not informed of the change. During an appeal regarding her discipline, Ricard was denied a religious exemption to the policy 3 times, and her beliefs were never accommodated, the suit alleges. Now, Ricard is suing the school board, its superintendent Reginald Eggleston, and Fort Riley Middle School principal Kathleen Brennan, alleging the district's actions violated Ricard's constitutional rights to free speech, free exercise of religion, due process, and equal protection under the law. The suit also asked for a purge of her disciplinary record and the payment of nominal damages and attorney fees. Newsweek reached out to Superintendent Eggleston and a spokesperson for the school district. According to LGBT MAP, Kansas gender identity policy tally is low, which is defined as laws that explicitly mention gender identity or gender identity and expression primarily protect or harm transgender people. These laws also can apply to people who are not transgender, but whose sense of gender or manner of dress does not adhere to gender stereotypes. Now, I'm going to voice my opinion on this because I actually, stand with this teacher because first of all, if you want to us as teachers to address children or students by their uh, address them by a different name, then their name should be changed. When a child is enrolled in school, um, they are enrolled in school and they are asked that they present a birth certificate, you know, so that you can see what their actual name is. So there's no mistake about what to address this child as what's on the records, and what is reported to the Department of Education. So if you want the child to be addressed as a preferred name, then change their name. Otherwise, teachers have a legal right to address the child as their legal enrollment name. And it's confusing to tell teachers to address students as their preferred name when their enrollment attendance sheet has their legal enrollment name on the attendance sheet. So you as a teacher are addressing the attendance and you're calling out students by their name that's on that enrollment attendance sheet. So are you to manipulate the attendance sheet that can be used as a legal document if something was to go down? Are you supposed to manipulate and alter the attendance sheet to put student wants to be called such and such, even though their legal name is even though their legal name is what it is, and that's what their parents or legal guardians enrolled them as? I don't think they should have fired her. I think the school is actually wrong. If a student wants to be called something other than their legal name, then you need to have your name changed. Parents, change your student's name. Otherwise, that child needs to be called by their enrollment name. Now, when they become an adult and they want to be called something else, change your name. Go by something else. But while you are in school as a minor and your enrollment records say your name is John, but you want to be called Jody, no, because your name is John on the uh, enrollment records and the attendance sheet. And so this is really ridiculous, and it's getting out of hand that no one seems to have any rights but the LGBTQ. And now I'm not saying nothing negative about the LGBTQ because I don't give a rat's behind how you live your life. It has nothing to do with me because I know what my beliefs are, and I'm not getting ready to get into some back and forth with anybody about the LGBTQ. You do what you do. You live your life the way you live it, and I'll live my life the way that God has ordained me to live mine according to the Bible. So, at the end of the day, I think this is getting out of hand where teachers are now being terminated because they're not addressing somebody by their preferred name, but yet and still their legal name and their enrollment name is what's on the Department of Education records and what's on the attendance sheet. And when I read this story, I read it probably what a week ago, last week, but I wasn't able to get to doing the video until now. But I'm very passionate about how they're doing, making big deals about this, and they need to be called by this, just like the thing with the restrooms. I don't want a man in the restroom when I'm in the woman's restroom. And I'm going to keep it real. I don't care what they go by. I don't want you in there if you're a man. You don't need to be in the women's dressing room either. And I will make a big stink about that. You're not supposed to be in the women's dressing room if you are still a man. I have rights too as a heterosexual woman. And I think that, we have to start speaking up more about this. And it's nothing against them. All I'm saying is that if you are, your enrollment name, your legal name, that's what's on the attendance records, that's on your file in the principal's office, secretary's office. They usually all have one big office. But if that's what's on there, then that's what you need to be called by. And there shouldn't be any confusion, no confusion whatsoever about this. And people that are sitting up here being terminated and fired, that is so uncalled for when it really comes down to what's really going on. And so I hope that she gets her job back. I hope that she wins because this is not right. It definitely isn't right. But leave your comments below. Let me know what you think about this. This teacher being suspended for not using the students' preferred pronouns, even though the legal, the student records say a name other than what they want to be preferred as. And now I know that some kids like nicknames and things like that, but when you're in a professional environment and you want to teach children what's right and wrong and things like that, then we need to do what's right. And our focus shouldn't be on, what a student prefers as far as their name. It should be on teaching students and students learning things other than battling back and forth on a preferred pronoun name and they wasn't legally born with that name. Their records say something different. Our school system is jacked up, and a lot of it, students are behind because of foolishness in the school system. And when you have good teachers that are trying to do what's right, being professional, because isn't the school supposed to be a professional environment of learning for students and teaching them, you know, and encouraging them? But now it's like the school system has to become a mockery. There's all these shootings out of control where actually this other teacher, uh, they're holding him accountable too because he um what is that let me find that article here because I'm telling you I'm on the roll here and I am just really fit to be tied with all of these things going on with how they're doing teachers. And you know this teacher was he was held accountable as well for, I believe, taking a gun from a student. The student had a gun, and he took the gun from the student and trying to protect the student. That could have been a lot worse. And you know what they did to him? They're holding him accountable and disciplining him and saying that he didn't follow procedure because he was trying to prevent a shooting, to take place here. He was trying to prevent a shooting. And so let me get to that here it is right here. Georgia educated suspended after restraining student in possession of a loaded gun. So, you know, he says he don't feel like he did anything wrong. He's a high school coach, and I know that he's black because I saw that, whether I guess it matters or not. But it says a Georgia high school athletic director was suspended after he defended himself and restrained a student who was in possession of a loaded weapon in school. Now, all these shootings in school that's happening, and so he defends himself. He restrains the student that had a loaded weapon, and they also they suspended him. And he comes back and he says, I don't feel like I did anything wrong. Tri-Cities High School coach Kenneth Miller said, according to News 19, I only adhere to what Fulton County School Board policy says you're allowed to do. And he restrained the student. Miller said on August 20th of last year, the school's principal called him to her office about reports of students on campus with guns. Okay. During that process, we located guns. We saved lives, Miller told Fox 5. Miller confronted one female student while in the presence of police officers. Miller and the officers were unaware the student, who eyewitness described as belligerent and aggressive, had a gun at the time of the confrontation. Now, what if she had pulled that gun out and started shooting everybody? There would have been deaths in that school, right? And so they did what they had to do. But what they're trying to say is he escalated the situation. They're trying to say that that he should have let the police officers do their job. You know what? Woo! If you Okay, the situation escalated when the student hit Miller with a stapler. News 19 reported Miller then grabbed the girl and restrained her until officers stepped in and took her into custody. Now, uh, it seems to me that the officers didn't do nothing until he restrained her. And then they stepped in. It's like after the fact. When were they going to step in? So they watched the student hit him with a stapler and he restrained her, and then they stepped in. So a loaded gun was later found in her backpack. Another gun was also found that day, according to Miller, but it's unclear if the same girl was in possession of that gun. And he says, I'm okay with him standing up for those children. No, excuse me. Let's see, Kayvon Smith Arnold. She told Fox 5, I'm okay with him standing up for those children. What I'm not okay with is him being railroaded, because at the end of the day, teachers are put in very uncompromising positions to take care of our children. Miller was initially fired. They actually fired him. They actually fired him. But the school district later reversed the decision to a suspension, which has lasted months. News 19 reported. So they actually fired him, but then they came back and reversed it because they knew they were wrong. And they're still wrong for having him on suspension, and he's been on suspension for months. That's crazy. And he actually saved lives that day. And the student needs to be actually expelled. To be honest with you, that student needs to be expelled, and Miller should be back at work. And it says the district administration does not support Mr. Miller's actions relating to this event and believes his conduct failed to meet the professional expectations it has for employees. Mr. Miller inappropriately intervened in a student matter being handled by school administrators and law enforcement. It doesn't sound like that the law enforcement or administrators was handling that situation. Because if she hit him with a stapler and they only intervened after he restrained her, they wasn't handling it, because the officer should have restrained her before he was hit with that stapler. Okay. So Fulton County Schools said in a statement to Fox News Digital on Thursday about, um, Mr. Miller acted outside of the scope of his authority and responsibilities. Mr. Miller's conduct resulted in an escalation of a physical altercation with a student in crisis, which conflicts with district expectations to de-escalate in these types of situations. Mr. Miller has not exhausted his due process rights at this time and remains on full paid administrative leave. Miller's lawyers called on school systems to support teachers who get put in terribly dangerous situations. Those teachers are our first line of defense against guns and other types of terrible violence that happens in schools, Miller's lawyer said. And again, I want to reiterate that I don't think he should be suspended. Now, I have an open mind, and I can see what the school is saying if they felt and if they were telling the truth about him, intervening and not allowing the police officers to do their job, not allowing the administrators to do their job. But from where the story reads, it reads, and like I allegedly, okay, but the story reads that the student hit him with a stapler and he restrained her. Okay, now why did the officers just stand there and let this student hit him with a stapler? And then they only intervened after Mr. Miller restrained her. Then they intervened. Because if I'm reading this right, and going back up here, it says that she hit him with a stapler. See? It escalated when the student hit Miller with a stapler. Miller then grabbed the girl and restrained her until officers stepped in and took her into custody. Now, were the officers just standing there watching this? Why didn't they restrain her before Miller got to her? Why did she hit him with a stapler and then he had to defend himself? He has a right to defend himself against students. I don't know how big that student was. I think I saw a video of it, and she was kind of a tall person, kind of, tall person. But the thing is I think it's wrong. And I think he needs to be back at school. He needs to be back teaching, because anything could have went wrong that day. And if she had a gun in her backpack and they found another gun and they're not being able to identify if that one belonged to her also, she could have shot up the school. Why did she have a gun in her backpack anyway? She should be expelled. And with all these killings and shootings in these schools, and you telling me that you're not going to rally around this teacher, this director, you know, he was a director, so you're not going to rally around him, and you know, this athletic director. Why? What? Why? What's the reason for that? I don't want to always use the race, you know, the race card on this, but he was a black athletic director, and if it had been someone else, would you all be saying he's a hero? Would you be saying he did the right thing? But because he's black, you feel like that he was over aggressive. You feel like he intervened. You feel like, you know, that he stepped over his boundaries and he should never have, you know, stepped in. You know, and I'm looking at this, and that doesn't seem like a small person, because it says here's a screenshot of Georgia high school coach Kenneth Miller confronting student who was in possession of a loaded gun. That gun could have went off and killed all of them up in there. She could have just went crazy shooting if she had got a hold of it. You know, it just doesn't make any sense. So leave your comments below. I appreciate you all commenting and viewing the videos. Leave your comments below. What do you think that Miller should have done? Do you think Miller was wrong, or do you think Miller handled it correctly? I think he handled it appropriately. And he has a right to defend himself. The student should have never hit him with a stapler. They're saying that this student was in a crisis. Well, he was trying to de-escalate it, but she still don't have a right to be hitting on anyone. And that's why these students feel like they can get away and do whatever they want to do. And I believe the man is Mr. Miller is being railroaded. And we need to speak out on this, because this is wrong. And again, they're in another school in St. Louis. A second grader brought a gun to school. District says, you know, so it's just all these kids bringing guns to school, and when teachers intervene in it, this is how they're being treated. This is how they're being, you know. I wouldn't want to be a teacher right now in a school system, because you know what? That would be a problem for me. It really will. It would be a problem. But I'm going to put the article. You all can, you know, I'll put the article in there as I always do in this description, so you guys can actually, you know, be able to see the video. You know, I don't want to show it on, you know, on here, but you guys can be able to see the video. It's foxnews.com. Georgia educator suspended after restraining student. You know, uh, so anyway, God bless you all, and peace out.